But for those leaders, and I get this question often, well, how do we recognize our staff? We're so beyond recognition points and pizzas and everything. What do we do? If you really want to show um, respect and a sense of cultivating and sustaining dignity for someone, give them the best working environment possible to work in. Because that's the way you say that what your gifts, your talents, your knowledge, your skills are so important. Let us create a place where they can thrive and that you just don't have to survive.
I am your host, Coach Charlene, and oh my goodness, guess who's back on the show? Dr. Phyllis Quinlan. Welcome back to the show, Phyllis.
I have missed you. I am so thrilled to be here.
Yeah, I have missed you too. And you know what? You're such an inspiration. I remember, Phyllis, when I finally made the decision to do the podcast, and I was like, okay, God, just direct me to someone that's like totally doing what's in my heart eventually I would love to do. And I'm looking on LinkedIn and then boom, your whole profile came up. And I was like, oh my gosh, she is dynamic. Let me reach out to her. And so I'm so excited to have you back again. So you already know about the context of why I created When the Moment Chooses You, but I totally want to know, what are you up to now? So tell us who you are, just in case they didn't see your first episode. And I would encourage everyone to please go back and watch her show. It was very, very powerful. Major golden nuggets of wisdom there. So tell us who you are first, Phyllis, and then let's chat and see what you've been up to.
Well, I'm a nurse, all right. I've been a nurse for 46 years. I can't even believe it when I say that, but it's been a while. I was a psychiatric social worker for a brief period of time prior to that. But I am also a professional coach certified by the International Coaching Federation. And I now have a blended career in that I am a nurse, and there's no getting away from that. But now I'm no longer taking care of patients and their families. I'm taking care of the people who are taking care of the patients and their families by providing coaching and leadership development, and hopefully inspirational messages on LinkedIn and Instagram. And I have the honor of being the internal coach for AORN, which is the Perioperative Nurses Association, and the American Nurses Association, New York State. So it provides me the forum to reach out and really speak to and support all these wonderful professional caregivers.
Wow, that's wonderful. And so let's talk about what you're doing currently, because today we're going to kind of dig into leadership, correct?
We are going to dig into leadership. I'm on a mission, full disclosure.
Yes.
My mission is really to try to share what I believe is the leadership imperative for the 21st century, which is now creating and sustaining healthy work environments. Um, it's important to understand that, for those of us who were practicing pre-COVID, like for many of our predecessors, our parents and our grandparents, there are going to be like defining moments in your career or in your family. So for my parents, I'm sure it was World War II and the Depression. For your parents, and your listeners' parents, it could be Vietnam, it could have been Korea, it could be anything. But clearly, we will all talk about healthcare prior to COVID and healthcare after COVID. So
Absolutely.
something remarkable happened to all of us during COVID, and it wasn't just just the pressure of coming together in the courageous manner that we all came together and actually defeating a virus that was looking to wipe out the planet. So, I mean, that is no small feat, and we came together and we did that. And I know that there's literature and articles out there that are talking about post-COVID professional caregivers are burnt out. And I'm just here to say, I'm not quite sure that's accurate. The people that I'm talking to, and I am talking to a lot of people across the country and some international folks, when I ask them about their COVID experience, almost to a person, they are saying, well, I'm stronger than I ever thought I could be. So, Charlene, that's the language of growth. That's not the language of traumatic stress. You know,
Right.
th- I haven't really spoken to anybody who has lost connection to mission and purpose of what they're doing and why. I will
Yes.
tell you that collectively we are bone tired, really dog bone tired. And that's because COVID came, COVID went. The world got a little bit of a break, but we didn't, because as soon as COVID went, it was hit the ground running with what's next and let's get back to it. And, we honestly needed a good month to just shut everything down and let us collectively breathe, but that didn't
Right.
happen. So here's the situation. When you go through something this transformative and you've experienced post event growth, as we all have, it's important to understand that your staff has experienced post event growth, which has been empowering, affirming. It has really anchored their sense of competence and confidence. When you embrace that, as you should, then you are mandated to raise the level of your leadership game in order to be able to lead them well. You cannot lead them the same way you did before COVID.
Absolutely. Okay, so I want to pause right there for a minute because you're saying some really rich stuff here. So I'm hearing you say that, after the pandemic, so the ability, like what I just got from what you said, Phyllis, is that I should be so amazed at how amazing and how resilient I was to get through the pandemic. Like, instead of me focusing so much on, oh my gosh, I've been through so much, this has been horrible, I actually can see it and say, you know what, Charlene, you really did that. I'm not saying that it was easy, but you really did that. You are stronger, you are more purposeful, you are wiser than
Mhm.
you were pre pandemic.
Absolutely. And you
Yeah.
found that from within. That was not something that came from without. We
Yes.
were all scrambling. We were all creating,
Yes.
the playbook to defeat COVID. God bless Dr. Fauci. Literally daily, we put another page in the playbook.
Right.
We for those of us who were, really embracing transformational leadership, we had to kind of abandon that because there was a necessity to go back to transactional leadership. Things had to get done and lives depended upon it, and there was really very little time for anything else, and it was appropriate, and that's what happens in crises. But
Yes.
now, post COVID, there has to be, from a leadership perspective, not only a congratulations and wow, good job, kind of thing. There has to be an appreciation for the inner strength, the core resilience, the determination, the linkage to mission and purpose that it took for us not just to defeat COVID, but, like for many other crises, we go to work, we do our job in the face of so much, but then we go home and there's a break. During COVID, it was 24/7 for
Yes.
2 years.
Right.
And we navigated through it, and we navigated through it well. The thing is that because healthcare is what it is, and now, okay, everybody just kind of take a breath. We're going back to the way it was, and we're going to pick up where we left off. That's all well and good, but you have to have an appreciation that your staff is not where they were, and that you need to
Absolutely.
raise the level of leadership that you offer them, or you're going to bleed talent. And in many regards, we did experience that, didn't we? People
Yes.
starting to not leave the profession, but leave their jobs, not leave the profession, but leave their organizations. Really took the time to rethink. Wow, that was close. So,
Hmm.
what am I going to do with the rest of my life? I am no longer that same person. I'm wearing these scrubs and they don't feel the same because I'm not the same. And as a leader, you have to realize that you too also went through a transformative experience through COVID. Again, your own transformational growth, being able to lead and in some cases do direct care at that time, so that you owe it to yourself to renew your commitment to leadership and to refresh the way that you lead, because you're not the same, so you can't necessarily inspire and navigate change the same, so that your organization as well has to take a look at, wow, look at these leaders and look what they've accomplished, and realize that they are transformed and up the game in their respective organizations, or they're going to bleed talent. So that's exactly what happened immediately afterwards. Everybody was like, okay, we're back to the same old, same old. And it started with the staff going, oh, I can't do this anymore. And they
Yeah.
went. And then it started with leaders going, this is just not working for me anymore. And either they took a break or a leave or whatever, but they went, and the organizations were like, we're in, oh my God, it's the, we're in recruitment and retention crisis. People don't want to be healthcare providers anymore. That's not the facts. They
Right.
don't want to be led the way they were led anymore. They don't, they have to, people will come back to an organization that is based in understanding what the people have, the staff has gone through, and not only show them recognition and respect, but feed their dignity, feed their
Yes.
ability to live fully in this new sense of self. And if you can, as a leader, embrace that, if you can, let go of your need for power and embrace your ability to influence, if you can study real transformational change management in a time of persistent uncertainty so that you can lead your people and they feel anchored and confident that I don't know where we're going, but we're going to do it, just like they did in COVID, then you will be a leader for the 21st century that can create and sustain a healthy work environment.
Wow. I mean, so much that you said there. So, what I hear really, really strongly is that the leadership imperative, or the leaders now post COVID, have to pause and say, okay, I can't keep doing this the same way. So, do you find that most leaders are ready to do that, or are they transactional? Or we got to get back to the data, we got to get back to the metrics. We need our people to get back on top of it. What are you finding in the industry since you've been doing consulting?
So I think that's going to be an individual question each leader asks, because people did not lead consistently in all
Right.
areas of healthcare through the pandemic. Some leaders were very forward facing to the staff, right there. The staff looked over their shoulder, they were right behind them. They knew exactly what was going on. Communication was the order of the day. And very visible leadership was the model that they embraced.
Yes.
That wasn't for everybody. And I think there were reports that came out from the American Nurses Association that talked about nurses being very um, uh, disappointed about the lack of visibility from leaders during COVID,
Yeah.
and a little less willing to be forgiving about that, at least not at this point in time. So I think for those that were forward facing the staff and really locked arms with their staff and were visible, I think that the transition now to what leadership should be in the 21st century is a much easier transition. I think for those that were just the opposite or didn't fully embrace that, I think they want to somewhat go back to transactional. And the reason for that, Charlene, is because it's easier to be a transactional leader. It's easier to say, listen, this is what you need to do, now go and do it, as opposed to realize that your staff is probably among the most educated workforce in the history of healthcare, and that you need to appeal to them and make and help them understand and embrace the why of what we're doing and the necessity of change in a far greater way that appeals to intellect and spirit, and not just go forth and do it.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what? That made me think about it. As I experienced it for myself and my organization, I really have to give a shout out to my CNE in particular, because I remember her calling me to the office and us having a conversation and about, okay, we've been through COVID, we really do have to move forward, but like, how do we do that? Like, she was very perceptive enough to say that, okay, I recognize that I can't really move forward, but what can we do to support our staff so that we can get them to a place where we can move forward? And I did get a chance to witness that, and it was such a beautiful thing, because that's where, I like how you said all of the wisdom that's in the organization, but the wisdom cannot be shared if you don't tap into it. Like, if she never would have asked the question, I never would have gave any recommendations or suggestions or anything. So I think what you're doing is so powerful and so needed. So thank you so much for that. So yeah, come on, keep talking to us. This is really great.
Let me see if I could answer your colleague's question. Like, where do we begin?
Yeah.
right? So, all great change and all politics and everything is local. You'll hear that over and over again. So, you begin on your respective, departments or your units. And, I think there's enough out there in the literature, either from Christina Maslock or the American Association of Critical Care Nurses, the Institute for Health Improvement, IHI, that about what creates or what constitutes a healthy work environment. I happen to buy into what the critical care nurses put out, the 6 pillars of a healthy work environment. I think that if you take a look at communication, collaboration, staffing, meaningful recognition, authentic leadership, I think if you look at all of that decision making, and you say, well, right here in our little unit, Unit A, what's working about communication on Unit A? And use appreciative inquiry to figure out what's working. And then, what's the dream? If we had a dream, what would communication look like on Unit A? And then ask the hard question, which is, well, what's holding us back from living that dream? And you're going to find out that it's probably systems and relationships that are in the way, systems
Right.
that are broken, relationships that need to be made or mended or, really confronted. And when you do that, then that can create your action plan. But respectfully, what I think in all the literature I've read about healthy work environments, I think there's a missing piece now. It's kind of like the elephant in the room we're not talking about. And that is, really understanding and addressing disruptive behavior in the workplace. And I'm speaking specifically of the two main disruptive behaviors of actual bullying, which is abusive behavior, and then chronic incivility, which is the behavior demonstrated by someone with really low emotional intelligence.
Right. Yeah, that's actually powerful because I've seen that transition as well. And if you don't address that, I think there's statistics even of a higher level of people leaving the profession because of lateral violence,
Well,
you know.
it is horizontal, it's lateral, it's just there. And, too often, we don't want to get involved in that. And perhaps because we're not schooled enough, except for our behavioral health colleagues, in behavior and aberrant behavior. Maybe we're not schooled enough in having crucial conversations or setting and holding appropriate limits. Maybe there's a knowledge gap there, and which is, absolutely possible. But I think there's also a reluctance to get involved on the emotional level, and not really understanding that at this point in time, post COVID, if you are not going to be willing to address effectively those two disruptive behaviors, people are not going to stay. Before they may hunker down, they may term, well, we have some strong personalities, or, we might do some workarounds. She always calls in sick. He never comes back from lunch on time. And we're all supposed to accommodate these things as if it's daily business. And post COVID, people are just mad and they're not going to do it. And, I get phone calls from other non healthcare leaders who are saying, I'm having a heck of a time getting people back from remote work. And I,
Mm,
and I say to them, well, when you invite them back, what's the number one question they're asking you? And they're saying, well, who's come back? And I'm like, right.
mm,
Said, and when you start naming names, what happens? And they're like, oh, okay, I'm going to stay remote. Because if you're telling me that the bully or the one that's chronically uncivil is coming back to the workplace, no, thank you. I don't need that. Because many people didn't know what it was like to really work with a sense of peace of mind and focus until they were forced to go home and work from home and didn't have the constant irritation of either someone who was abusive or someone who was just chronically uncivil and sucked all the energy out of the room.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I was just thinking about something because a lot of times, like with bullying and incivility, like for instance, I mean, I've been in an organization for so long, and peers are not even willing to speak up and say anything about it. Like, say that you have a nurse that's being bullied, and they just don't want to rock the boat because they don't want this person to get upset, so they don't necessarily go to leadership about it. And then sometimes they think that leadership's not going to do anything about it.
And they're right. In most cases, leadership is not going to do anything about it, which is why I'm trying to raise awareness about this. But let's just talk about the two things. So chronic incivility, what's that behavior look like? Well, that's the person who, if you close your eyes and say, if they called in sick that day, you're going to have a better day, even if you're working short, because they're constantly irritating. They can never get their work done. It's always a melodrama. There's always they just can't get their act together or won't get their act together. And then of course we all have to work around and be distracted by them. And it is exhausting to work with these people.
Yeah.
And so that's one group. They're not malevolent as such, okay, but it is exhausting and distracting, and it does increase the risk for error. So it's important to be able to address these people who demonstrate these kinds of aberrant behaviors and low emotional intelligence. The what you're describing is an actual bully who I classify as a narcissist with a license or certification.
Mm.
And the reason why people are reluctant, they put their head down, is because part of them are going, well, there for the grace of God go I, because at least that person's focusing on that poor soul and not me. And if I was to stand up for that person, then I know I'll be all alone when they turn and focus their abusive behavior on me. And I'm not willing to invite that into my world. Okay, so what leaders need to do is really school themselves into understanding how narcissists think and work. And there's two things you need to know about a narcissist, and it has to go with just what we would call dysfunctional communication. They will always try to gaslight you, and they will always use plausible deniability. So gaslighting would be, well, gee, Charlene, when I was, telling you before, I was just trying to, be friendly. I was just trying to include you in the group. I'm sorry you're so sensitive. I'm sorry you took it wrong. I'm sorry you. I'm sorry you. I'm sorry you. I was just trying to be wonderful. It's
Yes.
you. Okay. And then plausible deniability is the same thing. Well, the situation is such that I didn't have you're misunderstanding what I did, and it's what I call shadow behavior, or you misunderstand. That's not what I did. Look over there. Here's what I didn't do. And people who are narcissistic and have that narcissistic trait are not really wedded to the truth. They have various versions of the truth depending on the story they need to tell to get out of the tight situation they found themselves in. So they will massage facts, they will rework facts, and they will lie to your face as if they are telling the truth. And it unless you understand how this dysfunctional communication works, you can actually walk away from a conversation with them thinking, well, maybe it is me, maybe it is, maybe it's not them, and that's what they're relying on. So we need to start weaving in understanding narcissistic or bullying behavior into our leadership development programs so that we can tool up and effectively assess and address what's going on. Or this will be the one thing that takes us down because people are just not going to put themselves in harm's way any longer.
Yeah, and I think that's it. After going through everything that we've been through, people are tired and they don't want to go through. I mean, because you want to be like your best self at work.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're working with someone that makes your skin crawl, then you're not really going to do the best job that you can do. So there's another type I wanted you to address. What about those really high performers, clinical experts, but oh my gosh, interpersonally, they are not good at all. But because they're such an expert clinically, a lot of people see them as, oh, they're amazing, and people don't want to touch them because even if they're bullying, like what would you say to those type?
So it's wonderful that you bring that up because that's one of the secret weapons of a narcissist or a bully. Okay, is that by definition, narcissists are usually charming and attractive and mesmerizing, and have this bigger than big personality. Their trade, if you will, okay, their stock in trade is to be extremely knowledgeable and extremely capable. In other words, academically prepared, and they have wonderful skills
Yeah.
and they leverage that against their behavior, so that what they're kind of saying, and maybe saying overtly but mostly saying subtly, is, well, if you don't put up with me, all of me, then who's going to orient your new people? Who's going to be in charge when you're on vacation? Who's going to be in charge when you're on maternity leave? Who's going to do this? So we look the other way because we think we can leverage their knowledge and skill. And then when you come back from maternity leave, your vacation, half your staff resigned because they, you know, because they were like, really, you left us at the mercy of, are you kidding? You know,
Yes.
so I have, years ago I used to talk about emotional intelligence as being the new competency for a healthcare provider. It is now the essential competency. So if you want to have a career that lasts the test of time and offers you everything it can, and of course mobility, or however you want to profess your career, it's going to be good academic preparation, sound skills, but it's going to be emotional intelligence as the secret sauce. And we have to stop promoting or encouraging people who don't have the emotional intelligence to do that, because you can teach anybody anything. You can hone skills.
Yes.
Okay. But I would have a hard time teaching being a decent human being who isn't abusive to others. I don't know if I could teach that.
Right.
All right. And that has to be, you know, do you have the personality, the mindset to be a good citizen of this unit? So I encourage leaders when they are interviewing to interview for a sense of teamwork and a sense of citizenship. Everybody's going to come more than likely with a baccalaureate degree or more. Everybody's going to come with their ability to learn and anchor skills. You want to really make sure that they're coming with the heart and soul, mission and purpose connection to teamwork, that we are better together, and interview and hire for that, because the rest you can teach.
Yeah. Yeah. I was talking to another one of my colleagues in another part of the world. She was talking to me actually about this topic, but she was saying that she has so many challenges because she has to kind of grapple with the contract, like the CNA and all of that type of stuff. She says so it seems a little bit as if her hands are tied and she can't really get this bullying under control. So, any recommendations there when dealing with
Absolutely. Okay.
partnerships?
Rule number one: do not take these folks on by yourself. Okay. If you try to take on a bully or someone who's chronically uncivil, I promise you they will turn the situation around with plausible deniability, gaslighting, confusing, and confounding, to kind of show that you're the bully and they are the victim. So you
Yeah,
never want to lean into that, and you never want to put yourself in that kind of a situation just because you're trying to do the right thing as a leader. You must get buy-in and alignment with senior leadership in your human resource department. There has to be a common message. There has to be a common speak. You have to understand that one of the number one characteristics of a narcissist or bully is they're going to leapfrog local leadership and go directly to department heads, or the VP of human resources, and leapfrog all of this, and try to demonstrate that you are victimizing them. And
yeah.
you need to have that conversation first, so there's a unified approach to how we're going to manage this person's behavior.
Yeah, that's really powerful. Yeah, that's really dynamic. So Phyllis, tell us about, so what are you working on now? I'd love to know more of what you're doing now and what you have to offer for those that are looking for what you're talking about, the help with their organization. So,
So, I'm really growing my executive coaching services, working with various leaders across the country with executive leadership and departmental leadership. Again, there is this, I think we're slowly but surely understanding that there is a little bit of a gap in many organizations between leaders that were pre COVID and leaders that need to be post COVID. And I am working with those organizations to try to close that gap. Um, I'm really dedicated to creating and working with leaders in healthcare and outside of healthcare to creating and sustaining healthy workplaces. I think it's part of our mental health. If you're looking to have resilience program or a wellness program at work or things of that nature, that's all well and good. And I support that wholeheartedly. But you can't ask the staff to work on their own sense of well being and resilience and then ask them to work in an unhealthy workplace. It just doesn't make sense.
Yes.
So, I'm collaborating with a lot of leaders in helping them redesign what it is, helping them pull apart where the gaps are in systems and relationships, facilitating those conversations to build stronger senses of relationships. Because at the end of the day, what we really need to do is not just we need to outgrow collaboration. Listen to me here now. We collaborated really well during COVID. We need to outgrow our sense of collaborating interprofessionally to now understanding that the interprofessional team is the answer to not just fortitude and resilience, but to solidarity.
Mm.
And it is an organization's sense of solidarity that we're all together pulling for the same outcome, just like we did at COVID, whether it is for a new surgical service, medical service, whether it's opening a school, whatever the initiative is, there has to be that same sense of commitment to common purpose and drive and understanding what the outcome is and how everyone benefits from that solidarity in getting from here to there. That's going to spell the success in the future of any organization, healthcare or not.
Yeah, that's really powerful because I'm just thinking back to where we were and where we are now, and to see like we went from, I mean, really, nurses were, they just were not okay,
No.
but they were showing up anyway and doing what they needed to do. I love how you said that we didn't get a chance to pause. We
Mm-mm.
really didn't, but we kept powering through. And so I've watched the trajectory of this dark place that we were in to us becoming unified. I mean, getting healed,
Mm-hmm.
and then reigniting our passion, going after the magnet designation. Like when I saw it was like you could see it. Like over the last
Mm-hmm.
year, you saw the transformation. So I love what you said about solidarity because now people feel so a part of the organization with the vision, with the mission, with what we're trying to do. So I just really, it was a beautiful transformation that I was really glad I had an opportunity to see that before I really retire out. It was beautiful to see that. And it was good to know that, guess what, Phyllis, I had a part to play in that.
Yeah, there you go. So, the silos that we have all been, trapped in for years and years and years can no longer survive. Can you imagine if we tried to silo our way through COVID? It would never have happened. We would never have
Mm-mm.
been successful. And that, to me, not to get too hippie and funky on you, but I think that was the universe's message to say, this is the way it has to be going forward. There's no one single profession that's
Yes.
going to power through to the future. There's just too much to do. There's too many moving parts. There's too many people,
Yes.
with too many divergent needs, and we all have to show up for all of that. Which means that one profession, one caring profession, cannot do it. We have to be able to find out, where is the overlap, and then be able to respect those things so that we're including this and we're not just saying, all right, you take care of that, but thank God you can take care of that because then I can go over here and do this. And,
Yes.
exactly what we did in COVID,
Yes.
we had a greater appreciation for everyone's contribution. And I mean from the top all the way down pecking orders. Where would we have been without environmental services?
Absolutely.
Okay. I mean, never in my life, and please forgive me, the infection practitioners out there, but I never really embraced the infection prevention community the way I did during COVID. They were just people that were like, wash your hands, wash your hands, wash your hands,
Yeah.
and I was like, I am, but my God, where would we be without them and the
Yes.
wisdom of Dr. Fauci and company and all of that, the collective effort to actually create a vaccine, the collective effort to restart the planet. So I think what we have to understand is going forward, we're going to be collaborating with more than just interprofessional healthcare people. For instance, if we want to do telemedicine well, you just might be collaborating with providers of, phone companies and providers of, internet in order to be able to take that service to the next level. So here in New York, it might be Verizon or AT&T or any of the main providers that we have. You could find yourself sitting at a planning table with those folks. So again, there's just too much to do, and the change and the evolution of things is too rapid for any one group or profession to take it all on their shoulders. It's
Yeah.
time to, lock arms and have a sense of solidarity around where we can take healthcare for the 21st century.
Yeah, that's so profound. So I would love for you, Phyllis, to give us, I love those three wisdom gems. So can you give us some wisdom gems? It can be three or whatever you see fit
Ooh, wisdom
about,
gems.
yeah, just about like, especially where you are in your assignment that you're called to now with creating and sustaining a healthy workplace. So give us a few places for someone to start.
Um, it's time to start reading things that don't have to do with healthcare. It's time to start reintroducing yourself to the world in global thinking. So if you're not reading, and I have no financial interest in the Harvard Business Review, but if you're not reading the Harvard Business Review, you're not getting an overview of the industry of the world, let alone the industry of healthcare. I would recommend really getting reacquainted with some of the wonderful thought leaders that are out there. Ginny Reminetti, who is the former CEO for, I think it's IBM, and her journey to leadership. Anything written by Stephen Covey and family, anything written by Jim Collins. Start really reacquainting yourself with thought leadership. Amy Edmonton in psychological safety, Kristen Nuff in self compassion. Really lean into the best of the thought leaders. And quite frankly, I read about 15 to 20 books a year. And the only reason I can do that is because I listen to Audible. There's no way I
Yes.
can sit down with a book. I have no time for that. Very few people do. But boy, I can listen to a book and get and really get a feel for the information that's being shared when I'm in a commute or I'm sitting in an airport or, when I have otherwise time to listen.
Yeah, that's great. So now, why don't you tell us if anybody needs help? How can they get in touch with you? What do you have to offer for us now?
Well, you certainly can go to my website, which is, www. MFW Consultants, Michael Frank William, MFWconsultants.com. But probably the easiest and quickest way is to connect with me on LinkedIn. And I will accept your invitation and we can start messaging back and forth and certainly see where a relationship can go from there.
Yeah, that's great. I think this is a very dynamic and really needed topic, Phyllis, because quite honestly, when we think about what this really impacts, it impacts our patients and how, I mean, when I think in healthcare in
Mhm.
particular, our patients, like our family members, us as patients, and our future generations, they're going to be getting treated. So for us to not get this part, this leadership imperative,
Mhm.
to get rid of bullying and incivility out of the way, where it's our care, our outcomes are going to decline because you can't work under pressure like that
Yeah.
and be your best authentic self. And so I'm so glad that you're dealing with that. So for as we get ready to end, why don't you just share with us something that's on your heart for other healthcare organizations or even somebody that's being bullied,
You bet. Well,
Phyllis?
first of all, if you're being bullied, you definitely please don't try to navigate that alone. You need to reach out to someone. You need to keep very good anecdotal notes of what's going on, dates, times, things of that nature, so that when you do sit down, perhaps with human resources or someone, that you are coming from a place of knowledge and advocacy and not from an emotional, I'm emotionally wounded or victim standpoint. That's one thing. But for those leaders, and I get this question often, well, how do we recognize our staff? We're so beyond recognition points and pizzas and everything. What do we do? If you really want to show um, respect and a sense of cultivating and sustaining dignity for someone, give them the best working environment possible to work in. Because that's the way you say that what your gifts, your talents, your knowledge, your skills are so important. Let us create a place where they can thrive
Yes.
and that you just don't have to survive.
That's beautiful. Great way to end. So, thank you so much again, Phyllis, for being here. You are always welcome back. Such wisdom, and I'm so glad that you're in that vein. And thank you for being an inspiration for me as well. As I move into my next season, I just admire all of the work that you're doing, and I can see that it's achievable
Well,
because
I'm
you've been
just watching you on LinkedIn, girlfriend. I'm every day I am just happy and thrilled for you. Many
Oh,
blessings.
thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, guys, get in touch with her so that we can get this leadership imperative moving in the right direction. Thank you for listening. I want to thank you for tuning in to another inspiring episode of When the Moment Chooses You. I'm your host, Coach Charlene, and it's been an absolute pleasure. Each journey we've shared today is a reminder that when the moment chooses you, the possibilities are endless.